like a woman, looking like a man.
Grace Jones, global icon, artist, actor, and muse. She was the most incredible artist of the 1970s and 80s, born in Spanish Town, Jamaica, 1948, 19th of May. She became one of the most leading figures in fashion, becoming one of the first supermodels, and accomplishing what none others had done before. Really? In this video, I will discuss how her androgynous appearance on stage made waves in the 1970s and 80s in terms of the patriarchal standard of modern gender stereotypes. First off though, what does androgyny mean? The term androgyny stems from Greek roots, andro meaning male and gyn meaning female. It is the combining of male and female characteristics, describing something that is neither female nor male. In Tracy Hargreaves' books, Androgyny in Ancient Literature, she discusses an old Greek myth called Ovid's story. It is a story of a female nymph called Salamis and Hermaphrodite, son of Hermes and Aphrodite. Salamis wields herself to Hermaphrodite, and this text suggests that it was an unusual rape of a man by a woman, leaving him with an unsought, unwanted femininity, a fantasy of unity. An expert on this topic, Judith Butler, wrote a book called Undoing Gender in 2004, where she spoke about societal norms and how, males and females fit into that equation, and how you either conform or, stray away from the systemic rules. Judith states, the view that the desire to live transgendered is motivated by a repudiation of femininity presumes that every person born with female anatomy is therefore in possession of a proper femininity. This sums up perfectly, as just by way of your innate biology, you are behaving a certain way, as a woman would with her innate biology and a man would with their innate biology. Masculine and feminine would align with those biological pivots, basically. Additionally, transgender individuals who feel their innate personality, let's say a feminine man, are more likely to change genders, as Judith Butler states, as if it belongs properly to a given sex, as if sex is discretely given, as if gender identity could and should be derived unequivocally from the presumed anatomy. Grace Jones became famous around the 1970s and 80s, and while a decade previous, like the 60s, there was a lot of liberal and open-mindedness towards sex, feminism, gay rights, with artists like the Beatles and David Bowie, a very androgynous, again, kind of artist and performer, was very coming out with music at the time, and it's seemed quite accepted in terms of modern media. But unfortunately, a decade later, when Reagan came into power in America, there was a significant decline in a lot of liberal views, and that was especially seen in daytime chat shows, unfortunately. The interview was on an Australian daytime chat show called Day by Day in 1985, in which Grace Jones went on the interview, and the interviewer asked her,
does that make you bisexual?
After finding out that she can be attracted to women, in which Grace Jones responds,
it doesn't make me anything. I think it's ridiculous trying to categorize people's feelings.
In which she continues, it's just
do what you feel when you feel like it, if you feel like it.
Very great words to live by. I say so myself, Grace. Grace Jones is clearly very indifferent to the social norms this interviewer is trying to place on Grace, going out of her way to humiliate this interviewer by pointing out the pointlessness of the question and how ridiculous to her it seems to categorize in a kind of stereotyping label kind of way. She's an active defiance to public opinions and gender norms. Going back to Judith Butler's book, she gives a great description about gender norms and how they kind of affect your body that you're in just by way of existing in social life, saying the body has its invariably public dimension constituted as a social phenomenon. In the public sphere, my body is and is not mine, given over from the start of the world to others, bearing their imprint, formed within the crucible of social life. The body is only later, and with some uncertainty, that to which I lay claim as my own. Deep. Hashtag deep. Very cool, love you, girl. The body, in Judith's words, is no longer biological, but a political statement, an ideal. This is reflected in Grace's music, as she loves to play around with gender fluidity and the struggles she's had around that. The song that does this perfectly is Walking in the Rain, one of my personal favorites. The lyrics:
feeling like a woman, looking like a man,
definitely refers to her dysphoria in her body and the kind of stereotypes a man would have, like she's very strong in the way she dresses and the way she acts, just those kind of stereotypes behind a man. But she looks like that on the outside, but she feels like a woman on the inside. Showcases so well that kind of dysphoria she feels within herself in terms of gender. This is further backed up by the lyrics that come later.
doing what I'm doing, feeling out of place, walking in the rain.
She performed this song in her amazing tour, a one-man show in 1981, in which she wore this lovely navy blackish suit with a tight navy leotard underneath, so it looked like her upper half was very strong and masculine, and her under half was very just sleek and feminine and fun. It was definitely a play on gender in terms of she was both at the same time, and all people seem to be like, oh, just pick one. It's like, no, because she looks so goddamn good, not applying to your rules. Grace is embodying androgyny in that outfit, and is creating some kind of harmony between the two that is just so beautiful. And while she's singing in her song Walking the Rain, it just further emphasizes that lyricism there. In Gloria Kinnico's poem, Ugly Androgyny, it reads, if androgyny was a country, its borders would be defined by Tilda Swinton and Grace Jones. Grace Jones set fire to the pronouns and danced in the glow. She is short, stocky, head-shaved, breast budding near the front under a frilly top, muscular legs from under the polyester skirt. Men's eyes follow his plump ass until his curves meet his beard. Kinnico interchangeably and deliberately uses she and he pronouns for Grace Jones here, clearly, again, harmonizing the two stereotypes in her appearance and that kind of strength in androgyny. It also shows that the body itself is the performance, it is the art of androgyny. Especially after talking about how Grace Jones sets fire to the pronouns, yet they are still somehow thrust upon her. It also talks about a very modern social commentary about how male sexual gaze follows these kind of stars and is asked to a lot of women. And in this poem it says they follow her, her legs up to her ass until they meet the beard. That is really strong imagery, because it's very much, she isn't doing it for that sexual gaze of a man who would, turn away at facial hair, turn away at body hair. She's very much defying the kind of, norm we have ingrained in us to look good or to present ourselves as, which I think is really clever in this poem. This is obvious in the 2001 documentary Grace Jones, I Love 1985, in which she goes on to talk about, is she objectified by the male gaze? Is she the sexual male gaze fantasy? In which she responds,
men's sexual the hell with their sexual fantasies. I mean, I exploit my sexual fantasies,
She was very sexy. As a woman, she was sexy,
Wasn't nothing sexy about Grace Jones.
Sit down, no.
No, dear God.
in Grace Jones' memoir, I'll Never Write My Memoirs, very clever name, she basically went on to say that in her early years of modelling, why she kept her hair short was because I liked how having it short was a threat to people, because it made me look so confrontational. I liked how the way I wore my hair caused a reaction. She goes on, continuing to say, my shaved head made me look more abstract, less tied to a specific race or sex or tribe, but was also a way of moving across those things, belonging while at the same time not belonging. I was black but not black, woman but not a woman. Her look wasn't just good, it was a statement. It was a kind of an FU to managers and agents alike, that they weren't going to let her do the style that she wanted and, represent her, artistry and her fashion sense, basically her identity, just because it didn't align with social norms and stereotypes that were thrust upon her. She just was not going to do that. She was going to do it her way, the Grace Jones way. And it's kind of because these patriarchal systems exist to kind of silence that nuance, the uniqueness that you have and Grace Jones had. Again, Judith Butler in her book Undoing Gender, she goes on to talk about how this violence from the patriarchy, silencing, etc., it emerges from a profound desire to keep the order of binary gender natural or necessary, to make it a structure, either natural or cultural, or both, that no human can oppose and still remain human. There's been so much conditioning through media or commercial advertising or just daytime television shows, whatever, that any kind of change to this standard is considered unnatural and not normal. Something's wrong there. Butler kind of puts this excellently when saying that the violent response is the one that does not ask and does not seek to know. In other words, just ignorance is bliss. An example of this is perfect in the Russell Harty interview in 1980, where she goes on to be interviewed by Russell Harty, but he's using these parent-like patronizing comments towards her to degrade her existence on this daytime chat show, so she can kind of be the laughing stock. Here begins the interview with,
I expected, Grace, that you might be a little more overstated than you are. I mean, I thought that your costume would probably be more lavish than that which you appear to be wearing.
I'm overestimated.
Straight away, just at the beginning of the interview, just as you're trying to get your interviewer comfortable and feeling safe on this chat same show that she's, gifting you and honoring you with being on, there's a demeaning, rude comment about her appearance, basically saying she isn't pretty enough, she isn't beautiful enough for Russell Harty and the audience. Just straight off the bat, just rude. But her response back was witty, was fast. I am overestimated. That is offense for offense. Russell Harty continues this line of patronizing rhetoric. using lines like,
Darling, I do not know where your head is at this moment. I know it's on the top of your shoulders, but I'm trying to squeeze blood out of a stone at the moment, but no doubt she'll relax as we get along.
referring to her in the third person sense of she, using that pronoun she, is removing her from the actual conversation, which is so, like, disrespectful to you as a person, like your existence there. You're not even there. He's not even giving you the respect of a name. He's just saying she. Oh, she will do this. Oh, she will, wake up soon enough, which is just so derogatory. He does it again when asking about what Grace Jones is wearing in terms of her perfume, in which she replies,
So I've got my own body odor perfume.
and then he replies with a snide remark saying,
Let's try and keep it on a slightly higher level, if we may.
No.
Are we?
at this point in the interview, basically, Foster Hart turns around to whoever is next to her and just ignores her, and she does not like this and does something very unladylike.
Are you wearing perfume at this
No,
moment?
no,
I'm
I
going to
very
leave,
seldom
right?
do
No,
wear
no,
them.
no,
If you turn your back
No,
to me
I-
one
I've got-
more
I have-
minute,
I have got-
really,
I have got to
this
talk
has
to
been
this-
going on too long already.
Well, it's only going to go on another 6 minutes, and you're going to have another little part of it soon.
That's-
but
well, maybe I should go
let me
right now,
No,
then.
don't go right now unless you really want to.
Well, don't turn your
No,
back on me anymore.
I can't look at you. Now, hold on.
She starts with one slap, then several more, and continues as the crowd starts cheering her, and she ends up going faster because of this. Ultimately, this was patriarchy attacking her, this demeaning comments on her, and because she was a woman, because she was black, it's just on a white British show with a man telling her all this and referring to her like she's a child. Basically, she struck back at this, rude power over her. She struck back literally several times. Grace Jones' career was a constant force in defying stereotypes among the business of music, modeling, acting, etc., performance art in general. She says this in her documentary, I Love 1985.
A large part of my masculine side comes across on stage. I want to experiment with it more, and I want to use it more.
I just set out to be more male than the male.
In a way, it was kind of a form of drag, an accentuated, stereotypical image of a man, but as a woman. And she played with stereotypes like that through her career to make people and the audience just question that, norm within themselves, and if the kind of thinking is conditioned or something natural. In Elizabeth G. Trove's book, Dream Identities, Class and Gender in a Generation of 1980s Hollywood Movies, she talks about female presentations in films and how it was a lot of psychosexual fantasies of male-to-male gaze placed on these women in films. She goes on saying that women are projections of the male unconscious, alternatively idealized as passive objects, fetishism, a sadistically disparaged voyeurism, going on to say women watching this are limited to the masochistic pleasure of watching their own objectification and degradation. In contrast with Grace Jones, she kind of took the opposite role in Hollywood movies that she starred in. Her appearance in Vamp, where she showed a sexually explicit vampire, leading men to their doom, was very aggressive and evil and sadistic, not very passive or objectified. In the film Boomerang, she basically played an enhanced version of Grace Jones on screen, riding in with men, charging as horses on her chariot, taking off her underwear to become a perfume in a board meeting, making all these businessmen uncomfortable and freaked out, and, you know, being explicit in her words with the famous clip in the restaurant. And even in Conan the Destroyer, when she's playing this barbaric warrior, she's a fighter. She's someone on the front line being as masculine as she can, you know, not really letting herself be cast as the disparaged woman. I think overall, Grace Jones really did turn patriarchal concepts on their head through fashion, through outfits, through songs, through performance art, and that androgynous presentation really shines through today in terms of modern political comments about non-binary and all the kind of genderqueer norms today. Can also be commented on the fact that you don't need that kind of identity to fit in. I think for myself, in terms of labels and stuff, I think it can be good because you can find a sense of community. But a lot of the time, what especially Grace said is, in a perfect world, you can really just let it go, the concept of defining yourself, explaining yourself, because you shouldn't have to explain yourself like Grace did. It's all shown through the way she acts, the way she moves, the way she dances, the way she sings in a low voice, the way she, you know, wears a buff outfit, the way she plays a barbaric warrior. It's very in your face without, you know, sitting down, being asked, are you this, are you that, do this, do that. She just does what she feels, when she feels like it, if she feels like it. And yeah, I guess now I say thank you so much for listening. I am just an obsessed fan of this incredible woman who has really taken my eye this past couple of months, and especially her music and her performance art. It's been revolutionary for myself as the way I see myself and the way I present myself. And I hope this video conveys that and helps anyone else out there who's struggling with identity and how they're feeling about themselves. And I think people like her are a great role model for kind of acceptance in oneself. So good luck out there, girl. I see you. We see you.